big man, treat you like you're a little man. Degenerate into something fool. We just got tired of doing what you're told to do. That's a break, boy. Yeah, that's a break, little man. We you better get used to the way the world bounces. I see what you got, it measures it out there. But that's a break, boy. Yeah, that's a break, little man.
On the 27th of April 1998, the Monday Night War got really interesting when both the WWF and WCW put on live episodes of Raw and Nitro in Virginia. WCW Nitro took place in the Norfolk Scope, while WWF Raw took place in the Hampton Coliseum. WCW were getting into a habit of booking venues relatively close to the WWF shows, and while it didn't happen all the time, it happened enough for Vince McMahon to take notice, and according to Triple H, the boss was pretty annoyed about it. Hunter said, WCW had this mentality where they wanted to attack us, but it wasn't about them doing well, it was about us doing bad. If we booked Hampton, they'd be 20 minutes down the road at the Scope. This was the 5th time it happened. I said, I want to drive a tank down there. We kept talking and there was this pause. Vince Russo said, is that something we could do? That's how it started. Vince Russo said, I'll never forget it. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm just going to write it down for the hell of it. DX drives a rocket launcher right up to the building. We had a guy at WWE, his name was Richie, he was the prop guy. Whatever you asked Richie to get, he would get, no matter what it was, it always looked great and it always worked. Sure enough, I put down on the format, DX drives a rocket launcher, never thinking in my wildest dreams that this lunatic is going to find a rocket launcher. Less than 24 hours later, I get a call from Richie, Vince, we got you a rocket launcher. While it wasn't a rocket launcher on wheels by any stretch of the imagination, Triple H and his group of degenerates would travel to WCW Nitro in a Jeep armed with a cannon. Visuals aside, D-Generation X taking a trip to WCW Nitro turned out to be a pretty big deal, and during the Monday Night War it got a lot of people talking. And a fact that's sometimes forgotten is that the D-Generation X invasion happened just after WCW's 83-week winning streak. The DX invasion wasn't the only reason for the tables turning, of course, but it sure didn't hurt things either, and in a way, the DX invasion serves as a landmark moment where the WWF finally started fighting back and winning the war. So it's kinda interesting that this string of victories that seemed impossible just a few months earlier, started when DX went to the Norfolk Scope. Today's video looks at DX paying a visit to WCW Nitro. Going back to the initial idea to do this thing, Bruce Pritchard said Vince Russo was not responsible for writing the segment. Apparently, it was Bruce's idea. Vince had a production meeting and he asked what would happen in the territory days if a promotion was trying to put another promotion out of business, and Pritchard apparently raised his hand and said we would knock on their door. Now, throughout my time putting these videos together and putting a lot more research into things, I've learned to never trust a word that's being written or spoken by WWE or WCW production guys who worked backstage during this era, because most times they contradict each other or they just forget, who knows. So let's say the DX invasion came from a group meeting and leave it at that. Pritchard did produce the segments though, and we know that because we can see him in a few bits, but the initial idea and who came up with it is up in the air. Being the producer of the segments, Pritchard does talk more about what happened on April 27th, 1998. I know it's unreliable information at times, but it's all we have. So Pritchard will get used as an information source a little later on, but keep a big asterisk beside his name. So the plan was DX would drive their Jeep from the Hampton Coliseum to the Norfolk Scope. When they got there, they didn't really know what would happen, but they were going to record everything and show it on Monday Night Raw. The footage of DX going to the Scope was not live, but it did happen earlier that day. Remember, Nitro was running longer than Raw at the time, and DX wanted to catch fans entering the arena too. Pritchard said, and this is important by the way, Pritchard said he was told that he nor DX were allowed to enter the Scope. A big deal has been made about how WCW should have opened the doors and let DX in, but Pritchard said the whole team were under instructions from Vince McMahon not to enter the WCW arena. Also, the live episode of Nitro hadn't even begun when DX got there, so it would have been pointless anyway. We'll circle back to this in a moment though. Raw opens up with DX standing outside the Hampton Coliseum, and Hunter gives the DX army their mission for the evening. In the crudest DX way possible, Triple H tells his troops that they're going to visit the Norfolk Scope and pay a visit to WCW Wrestling. And from there, the mission is to return to WWF Raw is War after invading Nitro. DX get on their Jeep and the mission begins. We go back to the arena for live matches, and after a match and a promo, we go back to taped footage of DX arriving at the Scope. Hunter stands on top of the Jeep, he's holding a megaphone and he begins addressing fans of WCW. Hunter says, "D-Generation X proudly starts the war against WCW. Today, DX fires the first shot. Ladies and gentlemen, DX proudly shows the world that we're the only ones with the sack big enough to fire the first shot at WCW. So, suck it." This next part is then cut out of the WWE network for some reason, but we see a sign outside the arena where it's revealed that WCW were giving away free tickets to Monday Nitro. This wasn't the case, at least for this week's episode of Nitro. A completely different show was offering tickets at the arena, and it just so happened that the message for this other show played right before the WCW Nitro message. It was clever how they made it look like the Nitro tickets were free, but it was a completely unrelated show that was giving away the free seats. That's not to say WCW didn't give away free tickets, by the way, they definitely did, and Eric Bischoff said as much, but this was more like a well-timed coincidence. DX then leave the Jeep and they begin walking up to the arena doors. Hunter is still shouting into the megaphone about how DX has just fired the first shot, and the group then run into a lady who says that WCW sucks and DX rules professional wrestling.
Who rules professional wrestling?
DX.
DX then get right up to the doors, but obviously they don't have tickets to get in. Hunter wants to know how many fans there got free tickets so WCW could fill up their TV audience, and X-Pac gives a shout out to Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. This was interesting. Waltman had done the same when he made his WWF return, and he said then that the outsiders would be right beside him if they weren't being held hostage by Eric Bischoff. Triple H takes the megaphone back, and in regards to Hall and Nash, Triple H shouts,
P.O.W.C.W, let my people go!
After some more live matches at Raw, we go back to the taped footage of DX, and now they're trying to drive into the arena. The shutters get closed down, so DX aren't going anywhere. Triple H shouts that DX started the war today, but WCW is ending it by closing the doors. Hunter says DX are knocking on the door of WCW, but they're too afraid to let DX in. And the New Age Outlaws try knocking on the shutters, but no one shows up. Sean Waltman shouts for Eric Bischoff, saying he just wants to talk and give Eric the chance to explain why he fired him, but the shutters still remain closed. Remember earlier when Pritchard said on his podcast that Vince McMahon instructed everyone not to enter the arena? Well, Pritchard's explanation for the Jeep trying to drive into the Norfolk Scope is that it was a total spur-of-the-moment thing, and I just find it really hard to believe that Pritchard, of all people, would defy McMahon like this. To be fair though, Triple H did say on the Monday Night War series that DX had absolutely no plans about what they would do if the doors had opened. They didn't plan ahead and think of going into the arena at all, so it's very possible that this actually was a spur-of-the-moment thing. Still, it's the most remembered part of the segments, so even if it was unplanned, it was still a good move. I'll just mention quickly too that there was more footage captured that didn't air on this episode of Raw. The footage aired on documentaries and videotapes and flashback segments, things of that nature, and they mainly included DX asking fans if they got their tickets for free, to which the fans said yes. So, what happened on WCW television that day, and how did WCW initially react? Well, they done absolutely nothing to begin with, on TV at least. For a company who had been extremely eager to take shots at the World Wrestling Federation, it looked like DX had WCW all shook up. Triple H said, "I remember Kevin Nash calling me later. He was driving, he had gone to the gym with Lex Luger, and they were pulling back into the building. Kevin was like, "What's going on down there?" Luger thought it was a National Guard thing, and Kevin was like, "No, hold on a second, that's DX." So they drove to the building and they're all sitting there, and he's like, "You guys aren't concerned about DX being out front with a tank and 10,000 fans around him?" They were freaked out. When Waltman and the Outlaws began banging on the shutters, Kevin Nash said he was standing on the other side, and he said, quote, "I couldn't get this old man to open the door." It's unclear if Kevin was talking about someone who worked at the arena and controlled the shutters, or if Kevin was talking about Eric Bischoff or even Hulk Hogan, but I think he was talking about a member of staff at the Norfolk Scope. Chris Jericho, who worked for WCW at the time, said, "DX are outside? Why? Are they working for us? No, they're pulling a riot or an attack or whatever it was. We were standing next to the door, looking out a little window and saying, 'Yep, they're out there.' I remember Bischoff coming in and saying, 'Go back to work, there's nothing to look at, get out of here.' So we all had to skulk off, but we were all, 'I hope they get in, I wonder what's gonna happen.'" People love to talk about what could have happened if the doors had opened, and what could have happened if a few WCW boys came out for a fight, or even what if WCW retaliated by sending some of their superstars to Raw that evening. What's interesting about Nitro on this evening is that they only had 60 minutes of live TV, with the other 2 hours being shown the next day. The version that we see on the WWE Network has both shows put together, but still, WCW had Benoit, Scott Norton, Chris Jericho, Bret Hart, The Barbarian, Eddie Guerrero, Booker T, Saturn, Raven, Goldberg, and the NWO all in attendance, among others. Needless to say, 5 DX members and Bruce Pritchard wouldn't have stood a chance against the whole WCW roster, but I do still think about how crazy it would have been if something could have been worked out where, later in the day, DX drove the Jeep into the Norfolk Scope and something was done. It's maybe a missed opportunity for sure, but if Pritchard is to be believed about McMahon not wanting anyone inside the arena, then it becomes nothing more than wishful thinking. It wasn't just a case of Eric Bischoff closing the doors, McMahon wasn't going to allow it either. Driving down to the shutters is one thing when the doors were clearly getting closed. It's another thing for DX to appear on Monday Nitro. Even a few DX members were actually happy that the doors stayed closed. Road Dogg Jesse James said, "I actually was not hoping they would keep it open because I didn't know what would happen. I knew there were 4 or 5 of us and 100 of them. I think it's wise they shut the door for everybody's benefit. We planned on going all the way in there. If we had gotten in, this is a rough and tumble industry. It might have gotten physical. That's just me being honest." It seems that the fans maybe get a little carried away too when they think about an all-out fight happening between WWF and WCW here. From all accounts, the majority of the WCW locker room popped when they saw or heard about DX being outside the arena. Booker T, Chris Jericho, Kevin Nash, Scott Armstrong, the brother of the Road Dogg, all went on record to say they found it either funny or exciting that the World Wrestling Federation came knocking on their door. And I'm not so sure that Eric Bischoff commanded enough respect to unleash his roster onto DX in April of 1998. If anything, DX probably would have gotten brought in for a few beers with the boys and everyone would have told stories about the old days. Still, the perception was that WCW closed their doors when DX and the WWF came knocking, and it made WCW look like cowards in spite of Eric Bischoff's constant bragging about WCW being where the big boys play. 2 weeks later, DX were back in their Jeep, only this time they were in Atlanta, Georgia. D-Generation X were going to visit the CNN Center and try to go straight to WCW offices. Unfortunately, a security guard makes sure that Hunter and company can't get inside. Billy Gunn says the only meeting DX will be having today is the meeting with the cops who are likely on their way. The group go to the public shopping area of the building, but X-Pac tells us that they weren't allowed to film here due to the building still being private property. Bit strange seeing as it's a public area, but permission must have been required to record footage here. I've no idea how this would work over in the States, but all that matters is DX and the WWF were not allowed to get any extensive footage. DX decided to go back to their Jeep where they blew up the CNN Center, and that was the end of the segments. Right, now that we have all the DX videos looked at, let's go back to the WCW side to see how Eric and company eventually retaliated. During the NWO's entrance on the 27th of April, Tony Schiavone tried to squash the whole free ticket thing when he said, "We've been sold out for months, 40 miles up the road, they can't give tickets away." It wasn't really until 2 weeks later, the same week when DX invaded the CNN Centre, where Eric Bischoff would fight back. Eric said, "When DX showed up, I had to counter with something. I'll take the focus off DX. Vince McMahon, if you want to call me out, do it yourself. This isn't about DX, Vince, it's about you and me." On the May 11th episode of WCW Nitro, Eric Bischoff came to the ring on a motorcycle. Keep in mind that the WWF had just started to get consecutive wins in the television ratings for the first time in a long time. It wasn't just DX who had Eric against the ropes. Eric felt WCW Nitro was untouchable for 83 weeks, but the WWF was coming back in a big way and Bischoff had to be concerned about it, no matter what he may say in interviews. Eric gets in the ring and he says, "I wonder what Vince McMahon is thinking because he's been sending his little wannabes around demanding to talk to moi. Problem with that is, he only sends them where he knows I'm not going to be, but it's okay, I have a solution. Sean Waltman, you want an apology from me? You actually show up at our offices on a Monday afternoon when I think you probably got it figured out. Even you, Sean, are smart enough to figure it out. I probably won't be there. And as far as the apology goes, bite me. I apologise to no one. But I've got a better idea, because Sean, I know you're just a little puppet and you do what Vince McMahon tells you to do. So Vince McMahon, this is for you. I'm coming to your backyard this Sunday, Worcester Mass, got a little pay-per-view thing going on, and I got a hell of an idea, just a hell of an idea. You want me? I'm going to be in your backyard. Consider this an open invitation, Vince McMahon. You show up at Slamboree, it'll be me and you, McMahon, in the ring. How about it, Vinny? But I want to warn you people right now, if you think Vince McMahon has the guts to show up, don't buy this pay-per-view, because I guarantee you he's not man enough to step into the ring with moi. But I'll be there, Vinny Mac, I'll be waiting for you, and I'm gonna knock you out. See you there.
Come on, Vince, step into the ring. Do what so many other people would love to do.
So, Eric Bischoff's answer to DX and Eric Bischoff's way of taking focus off of DX was to challenge Vince McMahon to a fight on pay-per-view. It sounds so ludicrous and it also sounds very desperate, but this is what happened. Bischoff was being very serious here too. He understood that if Vince showed up, there was a good chance that Vince would destroy him in a real fight. But Eric didn't care. Hogan warned him not to do it, telling the executive producer of WCW to be careful what he wishes for. But in Eric's mind, it didn't matter if he got humiliated on pay-per-view. People would still be talking about McMahon showing up at a WCW event, and to Eric, that would have been a victory in itself. Gotta call a spade here too. It's funny how Eric called out Sean Waltman for showing up in places he knew Eric wouldn't be. And here's Eric challenging Vince McMahon to show up at a WCW pay-per-view, knowing that the chances of that happening were very, very slim. Of course, Vince didn't show up, and Eric had the referee count out Vince McMahon, while Eric was named the winner, a winner of a fight that didn't happen. The next night on Monday Nitro, it felt like Bischoff's insecurities were getting even worse as he sat on a Harley Davidson inside the ring, wearing a crown and calling himself the King. Bischoff spoke about his past television ratings victories over the World Wrestling Federation, and he talked about beating Vince McMahon at Slamboree, and the audience booed the entire segment. In my opinion, it was a bad move by Bischoff that only made him and WCW look worse. You may think otherwise, and that's absolutely fine, but nothing good at all came from Bischoff calling out McMahon. The numbers prove it too. People were leaving WCW in droves to watch the World Wrestling Federation while all this was going down. Again, this wasn't all because of DX. Too much good stuff was happening on Raw after WrestleMania 14. And that was the DX invasion of WCW in 1998. And you know what? I wouldn't be too surprised if we see something like this again, but not on the WWE side. AEW are very vocal and they're always taking shots at the WWE, so if both companies are in close proximity on the same TV night, I honestly could see a similar visit being paid from the All Elite guys. The Bullet Club done something similar and that got a lot of people talking, and it also caused a firing or two from the WWE side. So who knows really, it just wouldn't shock me if it happened again. The DX invasion though was one of the key moments of the Monday Night War. DX didn't get in the building of course, but by the looks of things, the group and the World Wrestling Federation certainly got in the head of one Eric Bischoff. Thanks for watching guys, and take care.
Think you're a big man, treat you like you're a little man. Degenerate into something fool. We just got tired of doing what you're told to do. That's a break, boy. Yeah.